I know you stated in the last lecture that the importance for setting aims in life and to kind of have goals to work towards, right? So my question was, how do you do that if you don't know where you want to go? Because that's kind of where I got stuck on your future authoring program.
Okay, that's a good question. That's a really good question. So there's this notion in the Old Testament that morality is following a sequence of prohibitions. There's a bunch of bad things you shouldn't do, and then basically you're good enough. And I think there's wisdom in that. I think that's kind of where children start, right? I mean, I love children and all that, but they're crazy little creatures, and they need to be, civilized. And well, partly what you do is you lay prohibitions on them, and mostly what you're trying to do is lay prohibitions on them for the behaviors that, if they manifested, would make their life miserable. So this is why this thing that I've said to people has become this crazy internet meme, but that's to clean up your room, and which is a lot better and more useful than people think. It's a lot harder too, but the first thing you do, I think, and I learned this in part from Solzhenitsyn when he was trying to iron out his soul when he was in the Gulag, because he was trying to figure out how he got there, how he contributed to how he got there. Not Stalin and Hitler, even though they were kind of to blame, but there wasn't much he could do about that. I think what you have to do, and this is part of humility, is you have to look around you within your sphere of influence, like the direct sphere of influence, and fix the things that announce themselves as in need of repair. And those are often small things, and they can be like your room. Put it in order, because the thing is, it isn't exactly so important that your room is in order, although it is. What's important is that you learn how to distinguish between chaos and order, and to be able to act in a manner that produces order. And I think you can do something as simple as just sit on your bed and think, okay, there's probably like 5 things I could do today so that tomorrow morning is slightly better than this morning was, or at least I'm not falling behind. And those will usually be, it's like having to eat a toad in the morning, right? It's like, it's not going to be something you want to do. There'll be things you're trying to avoid. They're snakes, essentially. But if you ask yourself, like you're asking someone, which I think is a form of prayer, if you ask yourself, instead of telling yourself, what is it that I could do to set things more right today that I would actually do? It's usually some small thing because you're not that disciplined, Then you can go do it. And then you put the world together a little more when you do that. And that spreads out. But you also construct yourself into something that's better able to call order forth from chaos. And that makes you just incrementally stronger. And then the next day, you can maybe take on a slightly larger task. And you get the benefit of compound interest if you do that. It's a tremendously powerful technique. And I think if you do that, at some point, instead of just having to fix things up that are not good, you'll start to get a glimmer of the positive things that you could do, the positive things that you could do that would actually constitute a vision. And that's what I would recommend.
Most people have a belief about what their real potential is no matter what you tell them. And that affects how much action they take. And of course that affects the result. And then ironically, that result reinforces their belief. And then that belief affects it. So I'll give you an example. Let's say a person has unlimited potential, we all agree. But they take little action, little results. Why? Because they have to start with a problem with their belief. They don't believe it's really going to happen for me. Maybe for Frank Kearns because he's got the cool hair and stuff, or maybe it's for you because you're so driven, but it's not me. Maybe Tony Robbins because he's a freak, got these big teeth. Whatever their thought process is, right? They got this thing, right? But what happens is, if you believe that there's very little potential, how much action are you going to take? Nothing, little. And when you take little potential with a little action, what kind of results do you get? Lousy little results. And when you get little results, what does that do to your belief? You go, see, I told you this was a waste of time, told you this wouldn't work. And then what happens? You tap even less potential, you take even less action, you get even worse results, and your belief gets even weaker. And this sucker feeds on itself until you are in a downward spiral.
It's poisonous.
It's poisonous and it's self-fulfilling. Now, what if something could happen that could come along and fill you with a sense of absolute certainty? Not like I believe, but where you know. In you guys' case, mine as well, we knew because we had to. Because we burned the boats. There was no other option. We had to find a way. We weren't going to live that way. We all did it in different ways and for different reasons, but in essence, that was it. If you get yourself in a state of certainty that this is going to work, I'm going to find a way, and if this doesn't work, I will make the way, then you tap a lot more potential. And when you're certain in your potential, you take massive action. When you take massive action, you really believe in something, you get great results. When you get great results, your brain goes, see, I told you I was a stud. I told you this thing would work out. Now you're even stronger. You tap more potential, take greater action, greater results. That's how you went from $300 in a week to $2,500 in 5 days to $100,000 in a month to $1 million in a day. Same thing with you. And we get momentum. That's why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Now some people go out and they go, well, I'm going to take a bunch of action. All right, I'm going to open this product. I'm going to try it. And they'll say to you, I even did it. But it's like a salesman who goes and knocks on the door, and he knocks on 100 doors and says,
you don't want one of these, do you?
yeah, exactly right. You know? And even if he doesn't say it verbally, his face says it because he doesn't believe it's going to work. So his voice, his body, the execution is so weak. Maybe if he talks to 100 people, somebody's going to buy out of pity. They don't want his kids to starve, right? But he's not going to get the result. So the core difference in people is how do you produce certainty when the world isn't giving it to you? You go out and you try, in your case, you're 100,000 in debt and nothing's working. How do you keep yourself going? The way you did it, the way I did it, the way you're doing it, we may not have done it consciously, is we didn't change our potential, that was there. And it wasn't even taking more action. Taking more action with a belief it's not going to work, it's not going to change anything. We got results in our head that made us feel certain as if it had already happened.
How much have you changed as a creative person?
A lot. Well, I'm learning so much. I mean, I'm learning so much. We're doing, when I come up with a good idea, I stick with it. That's the difference. I can come up with a lot of ideas, but anyone can. You know, when I come up with something, I go, you know what, this is something that's capable of me growing, and I still will like this. You know, this is something that's big enough and ambitious enough that in 4 years from now, if I really want to become a space engineer and build spaceships, I could probably put those spaceships in the movie or the book or something. You know, that's kind of how I think. Come up with projects that can last long time and grow, and then as I grow, I'm still interested in what I've created. But I plan for that. I plan for my evolving.
First of all, I believe that most people, there's really only a few key areas where we have almost like a superpower, okay? Aptitudes, all right? I guess we could call it a super aptitude. And we're looking for those super aptitudes all the time by trying out different lanes. All right, so take myself. I'm somebody who has attention deficit disorder, and what that means is that I can speak almost indefinitely. It means that I also have almost infinite creativity, and that also comes from growing up with depression. When you're depressed, that can oftentimes trigger this very, very intense creativity. So between having depression and attention deficit disorder, and also in my case, if you look at things like growing up unable to read social cues, you have an interesting recipe for how I built real social dynamics, okay? So I basically found my super aptitudes because by not understanding something so thoroughly, I had to break it down so deeply to understand it. That's social dynamics, which creates great content. Plus, I'm being depressed creates creativity, and also having ADD allows me to talk forever because I don't feel the passage of time in the way that a normal person does. I can't feel time passing, so I could do this forever. Okay, so if you look at that, that created a super aptitude. Okay, now how did I find it? I tried out many different things. As long as I was trying out different things, I was happy. So tried out one thing, tried another thing, tried another thing, tried another thing, tried another thing.
We've established the fact that we love to play everything. You know, that there's not a genre that we'll shrink from. But at the same time, I think we've just gotten very confident as songwriters to the point where if we want to try something, we will. You know, we're not hesitant to try something, even if it sounds a little sweeter. Like you take a song like Saint Marie that's on the new album, and it's got a very cool California country vibe to it. Like, you know, 10 years ago, maybe we wouldn't have had the Stones to be able to do that, you know? And now we're like, we're going to do whatever we want, you know? So it's the strength of experience, and yet still having that refreshing love for music that encourages you to try new things.
Always success and failure. You just have to know where to look for it. And that means that's a learning moment.
So you say every failure is success in learning if you know how to learn.
Exactly. You just have to look for it. Because then you use that again and you make sure you don't make that mistake again or don't allow that mistake to happen. So your goal is to then, just because it didn't work out the way you wanted to, take that knowledge, take those learnings, and reapply it to a new direction. And therefore, you're going to get better. No one's, you've had failure, I've had failure, and it takes years of building up that kind of thick skin around you. But that's what it means to be resilient. You just get up and you keep going. And I can't tell you, there's been times when I just sat there and I was like, oh, the world's going to be over. And then, you know what? You just look at it and you think about it, and you have to project yourself, not today, but project yourself into the future. What could I do in the future? If you keep looking ahead, everybody fails. You're not the only one. Everybody does. Just get over it.